Welcome to our second straight live edition of Inside the Huddle on a Thursday evening, presented by our good friends at Central Bank of Boone County and the Tiger Scholarship Fund. And this week, we're happy to be joined by the head football coach at the University of Missouri, Eliah Drinkwitz, as Zoom continues to bring us all together across this great nation during this certainly unprecedented time. And Coach, we're going to talk about a lot of different things here tonight for our Tiger Scholarship Fund donors and our season ticket holders. First and foremost, how are you doing coming to us live from your home here in Columbia?
Man, we're doing great. I appreciate Central Bank of Boone being our sponsor tonight. That's a great reminder that I need to pay my mortgage payment this month, and so that was really good. We're doing great. I've gotten a lot of great time. I've got four young girls, 10, 6, 2, and 6 months, and so we've really been optimizing the time that we've had together. Been able to go out and make s'mores at night and play hide and seek and really get some time that I haven't had in a while. And so, I'm looking at the positives of this deal. So it's been really good for our family.
Going to talk about a lot of different things here over the course of the next half hour or so as we speak with Mizzou head coach Eliah Drinkwitz. We got some great questions from our Tiger Scholarship Fund donors and our fans that we'll pass along. We'll also talk about the South End Zone facility as we come up on a year since that beautiful building was completed. We'll also look ahead to the 2020 season and also talk a little bit about some of those former Tigers who are hoping to hear their name called this weekend in the NFL draft. But, Coach, you just mentioned it right there. I was talking with Kyle Gibson, the former Missouri pitcher who now is with the Texas Rangers, and he mentioned a lot of the same things during this time. Almost a blessing to be able to spend some extra time with the family and do some things you might not usually be able to do this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, we've been able to work really efficiently with our staff, but we've also, made sure that we've been able to get first things first, which is take care of our family. And, when this whole thing's said and done, I think we'll all look back and say, I'm thankful for the time that we had with each other. And that's really our focus, not only for us, myself, but our staff and for our players. And, that's really what we've encouraged them to do is do your work, make sure you're staying in great shape, but utilize the time you have with your family because you'll never get that time back, and it's going to be an important memory that you'll have. We'll all remember Corona 2020.
That's for sure, no doubt. We all certainly will. Let's pick up with our first question from a donor right where you were going there a second ago, and I can't even imagine all the different adjustments that the program has had to make over the last 5 or 6 weeks. Tell us how you and your staff have adjusted. First of all, in the coaching realm, as you try to continue to coach your players, but secondly, in the recruiting area as well, because you can't do nearly as many things as you used to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, you've had to just basically take the playbook and throw it away from a recruiting standpoint and what your normal offseason would be. And you've had to be, think outside the box, be strategic in what you're trying to limit be creative and how can you effectively to the team and to the recruits. And that's really what we've tried to do specifically for our players. We have 8 hours a week that we can have these Zoom video meetings, but as you know, these are not thank God that we have these, because I remember, 15 years ago when we had the phones that we had to dial the numbers that way, we'd all be whacked out right now. But so we utilize Zoom. We have a routine. Monday is their off day, and it's focused on school and tutoring and all the things, going to class. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we start meetings at 2:00. Wednesday, we have a team meeting. And then Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, we have position meetings where they spend an hour and a half with their position coach. Every morning, our strength coach sends out a TeamWorks video that has the exercise or workout for the day. Now, we're not able to ask them if they've done it. We're not able to hold them accountable for that, but we are giving them the information. And they've been really receptive. I will say this, the most exciting time for me in my entire week is 2:00 on Wednesdays, when I can see the different faces on Zoom and get a chance to interact with them. And that's really the thing that I miss the most, is the time that we get to spend together. Now, as far as recruiting, I mean, we have made a renewed focus on our state. And if you follow us on social media, this week we spent 2 days in St. Louis, and I think it's been we would have, if we were in person, we would have gone to every school in the state of Missouri this week. But since we couldn't, we've done it all virtually. We spent 2 days in St. Louis, days in rural parts of Missouri, and we spent the last 2 days in Kansas City. We've phone called every school that plays college football or plays high school football. And, we're trying to do a great job of identifying players that can play at a high level to help us win the SEC East, and then get them to identify that Mizzou is the place for them. And we've got to continue to rebuild our brand for the true sons of Mizzou to stay home. And that's something that's really a focus for us right now. We've got some really good players in the state, but we've got to focus and effectively recruit to get them to stay here. And that's really what our coaching staff has been working on. The ways we've been doing that is, we call it virtual recruiting, and basically what we're doing now, except we have access to our building. And so we take them through and go to the weight room and let Coach Woodfin, give his spiel about how he would utilize the weight room. Let Owen Stanley go to the training room and let him show that. Mike Krakowski, our equipment manager, shows them the equipment room and shows them the locker room. And then they bring them up to me, and I have a head coaches meeting, and I walk out of the south end zone and show them Frill Field. And it's been effective. Obviously, we just got a grad transfer center from Rutgers who's going to help us immediately with some needs. But nothing replaces all five senses. And so while it's been effective, we got to continue to build relationships and try to get these guys to identify with us.
I want to ask you about the meetings that you're holding virtually via Zoom, and how have you changed maybe your meeting style? Because, commanding everyone's attention and conveying information, I'm sure, is different via Zoom than it is when you've got everybody in the room together.
Yeah, I try to be very clear and concise, effective. My jokes don't quite work as well. One thing that I've done was whenever I give some sort of unique topic or conversation, I'll call a couple of the players in the Zoom meeting and have them have not answers ready, but maybe a demonstration ready for what I'm trying to present. And so that's been effective. And that's probably been the most effective way to do it. But, technology is an amazing thing. We're able to share screens, and the screen that I'm controlling and watching is the same screen that they're controlling and watching. And that's been effective for teaching our schemes. Obviously, it's not as effective as doing the schemes, but it has been effective. And it's something that we'll continue to do. Like I told our staff, if it helps any one player on our team just a little bit, then it's worth doing. And so we're trying to get as many advantages, baby steps as we can take until we can get our hands on them.
How do you feel like the players have received all this virtual coaching?
They're hungry. I think they're eager. The seniors, time and tide wait for no man. And so they know that time's not going to stop. And these seniors have something that they want to prove. And I think they've been really good at holding everybody else accountable to the standard that we've set, which is we want to always compete to do it better than it's ever been done before. And they've bought into that message. And so, I think guys have been attentive. We've had great attendance. We've done very well with our academics. And I know our guys are anxious to get back. That's the question I get every day, multiple times a day, multiple text messages a day is, Coach, when can I come back? When can I come back? Coach, I need to come back. Coach, I need to come back. And that for me has been the hardest part.
Well, this all happened, was it 3 or 4 practices into spring camp? I mean, you didn't get very, very far into spring, right?
Yeah, we got 3 practices in, but thank God for getting those 3 practices in. I mean, that has been huge. But we got 3, and then the 4th one was the one that we didn't get. It wasn't enough to identify, say, all of our strengths and weaknesses, but it was enough to allow our players and coaches to see how we interact with each other, see how I coach, see the expectation and standard that we have as a coaching staff for the way that they're going to carry themselves in practice, see what we're talking about as far as effective communication. We were both able, offensively and defensively, to get into the DNA of our schemes, which is exactly who we are when the game is on the line. And so I think that is that's going to be an awesome thing.
So that leads into our next question from one of our viewers here tonight, and it is, how much has the loss of those spring practices to this point hindered putting the offense in for your guys on the offensive side of the ball?
Well, thank God we kept Ryan Walters, and thank God that the defensive staff is in place and we're not having to put in an entirely new defensive staff. I think it's, at the end of the day, football is about going out there, practicing, making mistakes, and there is no replication for on the field practice with a football and doing it, figuring it out, being coached, and doing it again. So it's hindered us tremendously. I think the biggest area is with the quarterbacks because, we've got guys who need to get as many reps as they can. See hey, I can put it in this window. I can't put it in this window. He's covered. He's not covered. This is how quickly I've got to get to run progressions. We're not able to do that. And that's going to be a big issue when we get back. We've got to force the issue, get as many reps as possible while also not put them in jeopardy from a safety standpoint. But the good news is we've done this before. We've put in the offense before. We know how to utilize our strengths as an offensive staff. And we did get 3 good practices in where we're going to be able to lean back on those and say, okay, we know they can do this. We know they can do that. And this is how we're going to move forward.
Takes us to our next question from one of our viewers here tonight. In light of what we were just talking about and only getting 3 spring practices in, is there a worry, and not just for you, but the other first-year coaches in the SEC, that this has perhaps put you at a disadvantage once you are able to bring players back to campus?
I think it's all about your mindset. I mean, if I sit there and focus and say it's a disadvantage, then my mindset is it's a disadvantage, and I'm constantly working against that. At the end of the day, when you look at our conference, there was a lot of changes. It may not have just been head coaches, but often, Georgia lost their offensive coordinator and special teams coordinator. Vanderbilt lost both coordinators. South Carolina lost offensive coordinator. Kentucky had some changes. Tennessee had some changes. Mississippi State had a new staff. Arkansas's got a new staff. So when I go through the gamut of the staffs, everybody's got that issue. So you know what? Whoever makes the most of it and doesn't make excuses, I think they're going to be the ones that are going to be successful. Is it ideal? No. Is it a disadvantage? Man, I don't, maybe. Because I've been at a disadvantage before. You always figure out ways to overcome it, I'm 5'11", got glasses. Some people think that's a disadvantage. I works for me,
Well, when you are able to get the guys back on campus and you're back in your usual setup, how would you like to see the lost spring practices made up? Because it varies. It's different for everybody.
Yeah, again, I don't think you can't make up time, right? So I don't necessarily think that if our mentality is trying to get back what was lost, I think we're going to be barking up the wrong tree. I'm focused on, okay, when they say we can get back, when everybody gets the same rules, then it's going to be about the staff that comes up with the best plan and executes that plan by getting everybody in the organization bought into that plan, moving in the same direction, and lowering their egos and saying, hey, it's about performance, not about preference. And for us, that's already our mentality. So, we had a conference call with the SEC head coaches today. The NCAA has been asking what the plans are. We've all given input. However they decide it's going to be when we get back, man, I'm ready for them just to shake out, what's fair for everybody. And then we'll put a heck of a plan together. And honestly, that's probably my strength, from an organizational standpoint, is coming up with clear and concise organizational plans and getting everybody to buy into those plans and move forward. And I think we'll be at an advantage. I know we've got an outstanding strength coach and Coach Woodfin, who was a strength coach in the NFL when they were coming back from the lockout. And so he's got an experience with having a short off season to get guys ready. Owen Stanley's got 13 years of SEC experience as our athletic trainer. And then I've got a great staff with a lot of experienced guys on staff. And so I think as long as we lean on each other, and once we decide this is the plan moving forward, we'll execute that plan.
course, as you mentioned, student athletes are not on campus right now. It's all remote learning this semester at the University of Missouri. So how have your players responded academically during this challenging time?
Well, some of them have used the whole my Wi-Fi is not working excuse, but no, for the most part, I would have to just give Tammy Chivas a lot of credit. Her staff has done an outstanding job, and our players have done an outstanding job of being where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to do. It is a challenge now. I mean, you got guys going to class on a cell phone. They've got family in there. When it rains outside, people can't go outside, and these people are not. They're living in small confined places, and so our guys are doing the absolute best they can, and that's all we can ask for them is to give good effort.
Of course, it was announced yesterday by Assistant President Moon Choi, also the interim chancellor of Mizzou, that the hope is that fall semester is able to go on as we're used to. For your comfort level, and this is the next question from one of our viewers here tonight, for your comfort level, what is the latest you could get back to campus and start fall camp and feel good about the currently scheduled season opener?
I mean, as college football coaches, we always want more time with our guys. We want more practices. We want more of everything, right? I think there's coaches out there with a lot of varying opinions. I'm a former high school football coach, and have been, in these kind of situations before where you don't see your guys all summer. I tend to believe that if you got us back August 1st, we could play September 5th. It may not be the best product, but I don't want to be the guy that draws a line in the sand, in April 23rd that says if we're not back by this time that we can't play football. I think football is too important, not only to our university, to our state, but I also believe it's going to signify when we're playing football in front of our fans in our communities. It's going to signify that we beat COVID-19 and we've overcome that fear, and we're trying to resume life as normal as possible in a safe way. And I think we need that right now. For me, the toughest thing with the invisible enemy is the fight is not necessarily fair. I drive around Columbia and I'm sitting there going, why are we not being able to work? Because it's beautiful outside and you don't see the effects, but we also know that there's other places that are really struggling. And so, I think giving that visual hope of us playing football is going to be important. And I sure don't want to be somebody that has a pessimistic attitude about what I can't do. I mean, we've got nurses and doctors and great people out there fighting the front lines, 12 and 14 hours a day. It'd be pretty selfish for me to say the guy can't get ready to play in 5 weeks.
You touched on this a little bit a moment ago, but I'll follow up. How has the SEC and maybe the NCAA asked for input from coaches about an eventual return to play plan?
Yeah, the SEC had a head coaches conference call with us today, and basically just went over what our ideas are. We'd already given to them on a one-on-one, and then we just convened as a group and discussed it. They're going to present those ideas to the NCAA medical doctors and trainers and see if they think those plans are acceptable. I think honestly, we're all kind of waiting for a directive from, state and local governments, from the president, from, our administration. And I don't think anybody wants to be the person to make the call one way or the other right now. I think we're trying to wait as long as possible because the information changes constantly, right? I mean, the information changed from January to February to March to April. We're April 23rd now. I don't think anybody's in a decision that's going to define the fall in the spring. And I think that's the wise and prudent thing to do. And so we're kind of in a status quo right now. And that's a good place.
Last question from one of our viewers. A little levity. Are you consuming more or the same amount of Diet Mountain Dew during this time?
Well, depends. We're trying to sleep train our 6-month-old, and that has not gone. That has not gone on schedule. Last night I was up at 4:30, rocking her back to sleep till probably about 5:05, and I've not mastered the lay her in the crib and walk out of the room, because every time I try to lay her in the crib, she startles and wakes up, and so when that happens, your mornings are kind of shot, so you're back into really drinking a lot of Diet Mountain Dew. But I have, gone in. I've got a little bit more Diet Coke in the diet. I've got a little bit more Diet Dr Pepper, and at night, I've really found these either Sprite Zero or Diet 7-Up to reduce the caffeine after 8 o'clock. You're not supposed to have any caffeine so that you can get into your REM sleep. So, I'm really, really trying to get healthy here.
Well, Coach, let's change gears a little bit. We had a lot of questions about that beautiful facility that almost a year ago they're putting the finishing touches on. It's the South End Zone facility there at Faurot Field. And, first and foremost, the time you've been able to work in there, how impressive is that facility? You've been around the country, worked a lot of places, and what kind of a gem is that for you and your program?
It's a tremendous facility. If the public is on the line, obviously it was a $90 million facility, but if Jim is on the line, it was a $104 million facility so, we realize that it's an incredible advantage for us, and it's one that signifies the expectation and standard that we have for our program and for our players, and that's to treat them like champions. I've said this. Champions have a standard of performance long before they're champions, and that's really what we're working to continually achieve. And that facility is second to none. When we go around and show the virtual tour, I think our guys are completely blown away with the quality that we have, the just the different aspects of the building, and how it's player centric, meaning all of the players' needs are met in one building, from condition, from a physical, from an athletic or academic standpoint. All of that stuff can be met in that one building, and that's a tribute to the designers and to you and the fans, and for in this conference. It was something.
We'll continue to talk about the upcoming season with him whenever we get him back. We'll take a quick break as we make sure that we have Coach secured here on the line. Be back in just a moment.
Our arenas are empty.
Our fields are bare.
Our games have stopped.
But our hearts are full.
Because we know that our students are strong.
Our fans are full of hope.
And our heroes are hard at work.
So one day we can return, stronger than ever. Together.
All right, we are back on Inside the Huddle, live edition here, as we are joined by Eliah Drinkwitz, the head coach of the Mizzou football program. Good to have you back here, Coach. We were talking about the South End Zone facility, and
I took a halftime break.
That's true. We had to have one of those, don't we?
Had to. Yep.
Let's pick it up talking about the one of the two areas there that kind of act as swing spaces, and the premium seating areas, the Show Me Club and the Bunker Club. Some of our folks watching tonight get to watch games from those areas. Those also serve as places where you and your team get to use during the week when it's not game day. How does your program benefit from those areas?
Well, the first way is the Show Me Club. We utilize that for both breakfast and lunch every single day for our football team. It acts as a training table so that we're able to make sure that our guys get great meals, that they're in our building. We're able to, as a staff, get our hands and eyes on them and make sure they're doing good. Your parents always told you that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And for us, it is, because it makes sure they're on their way to class. If they don't feel good, if there's something wrong, they need to be in the training room, whatever, we get a great chance to get our hands on them. And then the Bunker Club is phenomenal. phenomenal for us in a recruiting standpoint, and so is the Show Me Club too. They both are. But it helps us to have an intimate gathering where we can demonstrate who we are as a family, as a staff. And it also creates just an awesome segue to the field. And so both of those places we strategically use in recruiting and for our football team.
Let's get back to some of the questions from our viewers here as we talk about the 2020 season. Who have you seen emerge as leaders as you've gotten into the offseason and you start to put this team together?
Well, I think guys who've played always tend to have more leadership because they've demonstrated on the field to be a productive player. And so obviously Nick Bolton and Kobe Whiteside have done a tremendous job in the past at performing at a high level. And those guys have demonstrated leadership for us. I think Akil Byers has done a nice job. On the offensive side of the ball, I think both Dawson Downing does a really good job of demonstrating leadership. Larry Borum does a nice job, and Case Cook have done a nice job of, keeping us in line, keeping our guys accountable to the standard that we've asked them to achieve.
Next question, the offensive side of the football. You've got a nice 1-2 punch in the backfield with Larry Roundtree and Tyler Beatty. What can those two provide on offense? A couple of talented guys who are 1,000-yard potential type backs.
Yeah, I think both of them have different and unique skill sets that we can utilize within our schemes running the inside and outside zone. We've been very impressed with Tyler's speed and ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Larry's got great vision, gets the shoulder pads downhill, and we're sure that the first person should not be able to tackle him. They give us flexibility in having a big back and then a do everything kind of back, and so kind of a thunder lightning approach. It reminds me very much of in 2017, we had two running backs, Jalen Samuels, who's now with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Nyheim Hines, who's now with the Indianapolis Colts. Both of those backs were very similar in one's a big back, one's a small back. In 2014 at Boise State, we had Jay Ajayi, who was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and then Jeremy McNichols, who's with the San Francisco 49ers. Both of those guys, same type of thing, big back, small back, guys who can be interchangeable, different types of backs, so that when the defense gets used to one, you put in another and kind of change gears on them.
Let's talk about the quarterback position as you have assessed that position and you're looking at everything you look at to make that decision. What things do you look at as you go through the offseason and then get into camp and decide on who the starter will be?
Well, for the quarterback position, we really evaluate it based off 5 characteristics: toughness, preparation, decision-making, accuracy, and leadership. And for us, those are the 5 metrics of a great quarterback. Quarterbacks come in all shapes and sizes. They're all different. And whether you look at the NFL or college football, they span. You got Tom Brady, who's one of the greatest of all time. You got Lamar Jackson. You got Drew Brees. You got Russell Wilson. You've got just different style of quarterbacks these days. And I think for us, what we have to do is identify who gives us the best opportunity to win and then direct the offense towards his strengths, not ask him to do what, say, Brett Rippon, Ryan Finley, Zach Thomas would have done. We got to ask them, what can they do to help them be the best that they can be as their own version of the quarterback. And we filter that through, toughness. They got to be physically and mentally tough. They got to prepare. They've got to have great decision-making when the ball's in their hands. They got to have accuracy, and then they've got to have leadership. And for us, leadership is the ability to get the ball in the end zone or score points. Too many times we're worried about stats. We're worried about, we don't need a celebrity quarterback. We need a battlefield commander, somebody who is going to lead this football team.
Next question takes us to the defensive side of the football. You mentioned Nick Bolton a moment ago, proven player, but this fan asks, what can he do to improve this year? Well,
no matter who you are, you have to work on continuing to get better at your craft. And, Nick is a guy who's been really good in the box. He's got to continue to transition to be able to play in space and in coverage. And then we're going to ask him to rush the quarterback, and he's going to have to be able to defeat blocks and defeat running back blocks when we ask him to blitz and get to the quarterback. And so I think there's always ways to improve. And for me, those are the things that we've identified that he can do better.
Same side of the football on defense with some of the players who are departing from last year's team, like DeMarcus Acey, Jordan Elliott, Cale Garrett. Who are you seeing emerge as leaders on the defensive side of the football? Probably some of the same names you mentioned a moment ago.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Josh Bledsoe and Tyree Gillespie, guys who in the back end can really, they've played in the past, but they can really help us. I think Martez Manuel, a local product from Rockbridge, is a guy who's really stepped up and done a nice job. Did a nice job in the first three practices. So, that's exciting for us. On the defensive line, we've got a lot of seniors, guys who've played a lot. Trey Williams, another local young man. Chris Turner's done a nice job of being a consistent performer for us. And so, those are guys that have got to continue to improve. We've got a lot of guys back from last year's team. But like I've said before, last year doesn't mean anything this year. And we've got to form our new identity. And those guys got to understand the standard that we've asked them to play to. And then that's not the standard that we had previous. And we got a new standard, and we got to meet it.
Well, we're bumping up against the NFL draft, which I know a lot of folks watching here are probably excited about.
No doubt.
I'll get you out of here on this. Mizzou has a lot of different players who might be drafted and hear their name called this weekend. What do you hear about the prospects of some of those guys? And then also, how do you as a head coach get players ready to play in the NFL?
Yeah. I know we've got some guys that are very intrigued. I don't anticipate I don't know. I don't know how the draft is going to go. Hopefully we've got somebody that'll get called tonight, but don't want to put any pressure on them. The biggest thing I think you tell all draft picks is no matter where you get drafted, it's what you do with the opportunity once you get the opportunity. And so, some people get all upset about, I wasn't this round or that round or this pick or that pick. It's about taking advantage of the opportunity that you got at the moment you get the opportunity. And the way that we can effectively help young men be the best that they can be in the NFL is, one, we've got to train them to be the best version of themselves on and off the field from an athletic standpoint and a training in the training room. But I think honestly, the biggest thing we can do is help develop their mental toughness, because the NFL, not for long league, is very difficult, and it's that nobody's path is the same, whether you're the first pick overall or you're the last pick. Nobody's path is the same. I mean, I saw an incredible stat that first round quarterbacks, the guy who's had the most Super Bowls in the first round was John Elway. And you think about all these quarterbacks that get drafted number one, they're supposed to change programs or change organizations. And the reality of it is a lot of them don't do it. And for whatever reason, I think it's because the mental toughness and the tough part, where you can take the 199th pick and he's going to go on to, I believe, 8 Super Bowls and won 6 of them, and Tom Brady. So, I think there's a lot of different ways to get there. It's what you do with your opportunity that's going to count the most.
And Coach, I know you're big on preaching to the guys to have a backup plan, chase 2 dreams, as you put it.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it's all about chasing 2 dreams. We talk about life with football. Each one of these guys has a unique gift that God's given them, that they can do things that nobody else can do on a football field. That's why they're here. And no different than if somebody was gifted to be a musician or a heart surgeon, we want to help them be the best they can be at that gift. But the reality of it is football doesn't last forever. And so we want them to chase simultaneously 2 dreams, a life with football and a life after football. And that life after football means that we've got to make sure that they have the right type of character, they have the right type of life skills, and how can we help them bridge that gap, making sure they have the right internship opportunities and make sure they have the right financial education, so when they do get out of school, they know how to get a loan, they know how to get car insurance, they know how to just do the basics. And so we've got to make sure that we give them those opportunities, connect them with great people, just like you and TSF, that we give them the opportunities to be in those internship programs or connect with y'all so that when they get done, they can utilize those connections to help their business careers or whatever they might be. We talk about it all the time. You got to chase 2 dreams, a life with football and a life after football, because at the end of their careers, we want them to be a Mizzou-made man. And, today, this whole week, we've been tweeting out people who have were from this state that played at Mizzou and have developed into Mizzou-made men and are positive contributors to society. And ideally, that's what we want. This is and I tell this to our guys all the time, don't let Mizzou use you. You use Mizzou. And by doing that, we're going to better the state of Missouri. Because I really believe that if we get great players and we allow them to chase two dreams, if they make football successful, then the state of Missouri is going to be successful. And if they're done playing the game, if they're a positive contributor to society, they're going to continue the progress of the state, and they're going to continue the progress of our great university.
Well, Coach, we so appreciate your time here tonight. As we wrap up, it's so easy to focus on all the things that we can't do right now in this unprecedented time, but what can Mizzou fans do now to continue to help this program?
Well, it's so hard right now to say this, but at the end of the day, we are believing that this football season is going to get off at the right time. And we need our fans to buy season tickets. We need to continue our TSF donations so that we can have that competitive advantage against the rest of the SEC. We need to make sure that our fans are in the stands when we play versus UCA on September 5th. Faurot Field has to be our greatest advantage. A home field advantage in college football has got to be your greatest advantage. And we've got to establish that. And I've got to do a great job with my team to make sure we put a product on the field that you're excited to come watch. And I understand that. And I promise you, my staff and us and our team is working our butt off to make sure that product is something that you can be proud of. But it's what comes first, the chicken or the egg, okay? We need both of us to raise our standard, to both of us have that championship standard. And I promise you, we're raising the standard of our program. And as our fans, we need you in that stands, cheering us on through thick and thin. And I know there's been some thin, but we're fixing to get real thick, okay? And so we're going to do everything we can to make sure that this product's something you can be proud of. And so I need you in Faurot Field. I need you there. I need you loud. We need to be intimidating to that opponent. And if you do that consistently, I think we're going to be just fine.
Coach, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. We'll let you get back to work and family.
All right, M-I-Z.
Z-O-U. That is Mizzou head coach Eliah Drinkwitz, our guest this week. Don't forget, we're right back at you next week when we have the head coach of the Mizzou men's basketball team, Konzo Martin, will join us live here on Inside the Huddle. Another thank you once again to our sponsors, the Tiger Scholarship Fund, and also our good friends at Central Bank of Boone County. They have been so supportive during this time and all the time as we continue here with Mizzou Athletics. Once again, join us next week for head coach Konzo Martin. Until then, stay safe, and we'll see you next week inside the Huddle.